welcome to the Hustle and Flow podcast.
A platform we use to explore varying perspectives and opinion through candid conversation.
We chat about philosophy, business, and all things life. I'm Shaun the Hustle.
And I'm Les the Flow.
Let's go.
All right, guys. Today's guest joining us today on the podcast is Chris Sulfa. Chris is a self-taught, multidisciplinary creative and an idealist who is an advocate of leveraging creativity, collaboration, and community as a catalyst for change. He is a graphic designer by trade who has worked across leading brands in the fitness industry, helping to innovate and shape their fabric. He is also a former spoken word artist who has shared the stage with international and local wordsmiths, utilizing the cathartic power of poetry as a form of storytelling that focuses on our shared commonalities. He is also the host of the Blueprint podcast, an upcoming show that intends to shine a spotlight on creatives, entrepreneurs, innovators, and change makers, on not just their motivations, but the movements they've created and are inspired by. So with that, I'd like to welcome you to the podcast today, mate. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
It's an honor, man. Thanks for having me on.
No, it's a real pleasure to have you here, man. And Les has told us a bit about you. And what I'd really like to hear, Chris, is as much about you as possible, as far back as you'd like to go, the origin story of Chris. So, man, however far back you want to go, please enlighten us.
Cool, man. It's like I said, it's crazy being in the guest seat right now and getting into that reflective frame of mind. But I guess the starting point for me would be when I first dipped my feet in the spoken word community. It was an interesting stage of my life, probably early mid-20s. I think most people at that age, they're exploring what their gifts and their talents are. I've always been a big fan of hip hop and storytelling. And at the time, I discovered a spoken word community out of Bankstown Poetry Slam. And I found that poetry for me was as a vehicle to express my story. And it was also very much a cathartic release as well. It allowed me to express deeper emotions, but also process through them as well and share that commonality that we have with others, the different, how do I put it? The different emotions that we all feel. It's been an incredible journey, and through that, I was able to connect with change makers and people within their communities who are making a difference, and we're creating platforms for others. And I guess bring it full circle to today, I keep finding myself in these positions where I end up being a community catalyst. I end up creating my own communities or working with others who have their own communities and platforms. And I think for me, the fact that I was given that platform has really shaped me and has been a huge motivator for me to continue creating these kinds of spaces for people.
Cool, man. Sounds like you found, something that really resonates with your heart and that gives you the ability to express. Yeah. What was it about spoken word that really drew you to that? And you said it was a cathartic experience. Could you maybe talk to us a bit more about that and what that was for you?
Yeah. So for me, as a cathartic experience, I didn't have the easiest upbringing. Grew up in a single parent household. Was quite challenging. I experienced youth homelessness really young, and sorry, I'm getting a little bit emotional and shaky talking about that stuff. But it really challenged me and shaped me in my formative years, throughout my teen years, and discovering the path of who I wanted to be as a young man. And for me, it helped me come to terms with the experiences that I'd gone through. But not only that, being within the spoken word community and hearing other people go through their journeys and their experience it really, I guess, in a way, harnessed that sense of community for me. That sense of, you know, I get to share my story and people resonate with it, but also that I get to experience other people's experiences through their sharing of their journeys as well. I hope that kind of answers the question.
Yeah, man. I mean, yeah, totally. I mean, spoken word and I guess any type of poetry or artistic expression is like a perfect vehicle for catharsis and just authentic expression from the heart. And, you know, whenever people, I guess, have these sorts of yearnings to want to express this, because I guess there's usually some sort of, you know, message they want to convey, or there's, like you said, a story they want to tell. So I'd love to bring you back, and you know, I love seeing the emotion that you were sort of brought back to, like that remembrance back in your childhood, your upbringing, those times. And of course, challenging times will always, you know, make or break someone, and there's plenty of lessons laden through those experiences. And Shaun and I talk about that all the time on this podcast. So I'd love for you to, you know, delve back a little bit deeper into those times, and like maybe pinpoint some of those moments that, you know, you might have found catalytic for you in your, I guess, your journey.
I'm already getting emotional thinking about it, like reflecting on that stage of my life as well. And getting kicked out of home quite young, like, and I understand, like, raising a family as a single mother is very challenging. And with that too, like, throughout my experience, I witnessed some things that, like, that were very challenging. Like, I witnessed close family members dealing with heroin addiction. You know, there was some, like, if I'm getting flashback moments, like thinking back to this one moment where I had a shotgun put to my face, and like experienced home invasions, and was surrounded by people that I knew were no good for me to be around. I knew that if I continued down that path, I might end up being one of those people who's addicted to a drug and spiraling and, you know, completely losing sense of reality and control. And those experiences, I mean, like that, like you said, like they make or break you. And I guess for me, I didn't want to see that family member completely lose her life to her addiction. And I knew that there was a turning point. There was a certain catalyst in my life where I realized I had to turn my life around. I had to at least put myself on a path where I know that at some point in the future, I'll be able to help that person. And so I think that was the really big catalyst for me there. Fast forwarding a little bit further, I mentioned that I worked with other community individuals. I used to work at a CrossFit academy with a poet who goes by the name Kave, the Unlikely Poet. And through working with him and programs and the other collaborators that he had, we worked on a project that allowed me to come full circle and to sort of, like, I guess, heal through that journey as well. We ran a few drives, getting donations and supporting the homeless on Sydney's streets. And there was this one definitive moment that really stands out for me. I haven't thought about this in ages, but it brings me back to this one moment where this one elderly homeless man, I handed him a pair of shoes. And I had this flashback moment to when I was younger and I was wearing the same shoes when I was homeless. I just was wearing the same shoes to the point that I was getting blisters on my feet. And this guy showed me the blisters on his feet. I literally took the shoes off his feet and helped him into a new pair. And he told me about his experiences and his stories. And, you know, the sense of abandonment that he felt from his family as well. It was just such a crazy full circle kind of moment for me. And with that as well, I mean, like, I also kind of viewed it as a rite of passage as well. It's a way for me to sort of really make sense of my own upbringing, my own trials and tribulations, and find a way to give back, find a way to come to terms with what I'd gone through, and to develop strength throughout that struggle.
Yeah, man, it's very sounds like a very touching moment, and something that would definitely, have those feelings of rite of passage and initiation into a new stage of your life. Sounds like you've been through a lot in your younger years, and I want to draw you back to something you said, which was you realized that you needed to turn your life around, and that you also spoke about your family member and how you wanted to be able to help her. And one of the things that we talk about a lot is got to take care of yourself properly to be able to help others. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like that's the experience that you had the realization of. And I'm just really interested to know, man, how you came to that realization at such a young age. Was there something that, brought you to that realization that you had to turn your own life around?
Oh, man. Oh, like as you were speaking, I was getting full body goosebumps there. There's this phrase, hurt people, heal people, heal people. And it's a phrase that I came across when I was really young, during that time, actually. And, it kind of dawned on me, like that experience of, having a gun put to your head. What brings a person to do that to other people? How did they get there? Like, how can you try and like have some compassion for that individual? What did they have gone through to make them that individual? Were they hurt by somebody in the past? Was it their family influences? Those influences that shape you. I guess I got to witness that contrast in my life. And at that age, it just made me realize, like, I don't want to keep going down that path. I don't want to end up being one of those people who is so hurt and hard done by the world, and it does the same thing to others. So it was, like I said, like a catalyst, like a turning point where, I felt like it pushed me in a certain direction to not sort of repeat the patterns that I was seeing in the environment around me.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I mean, we talk about this all the time in terms of like the signs that we see and the messages that we are each delivered as individuals, to steer us on the right track. And like different things happen, and it's a very, popular thing for people to say that things happen for a reason, and, you can take it how you will. But, where things happen around you, it's about the level of awareness to it and what we as individuals see in it, and then what do we derive from that, a level of awareness and vision to these sorts of things. And like that particular example, it really highlights this thing that I used to say a lot, is that you just don't know everyone's story. Everyone's got a story that is just unknown to you, that you are just simply not privy to, and then for you to cast judgment on people without, knowing all the details of how they got to where they are and the way they act and why, it's really, I guess it's quite naive in a sense, and it's also quite single-minded and narrow-minded, right? So it's really those things. Again, it's a powerful thing for us to wake up to. It's also like on the flip side, people always say that is it really necessary for us to reach such, catalytic moments, such, devastating turning points for us to make that realization? And, there truly is no answer to that in my mind. I mean, some people have to experience those in order for their lives to turn around, and some people, I guess, will be able to, move in the right direction in their lives without such drastic, measures. So, no, it's just, it's an amazing sort of, I guess, moment for you. I can see how much it means to you and where it has led you to today. So, yeah, thanks for sharing the story, man. I mean, I want to draw you back to, I guess, the work that you have been doing the last few years, you know, in terms of community. Now that, you know, you have been involved in a few communities, I want you to, you know, talk a bit more about that, you know, what that has done for you, why you felt like you needed it, and, you know, what sort of, you know, work were you doing within those communities?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like as I mentioned, I came across this poetry community, and I connected with some really amazing people throughout that experience. Um, Circling back to that, I mean, I was part of the steering committee there, and so I got to be involved in a lot of major events for the Poetry Slam. And then moving forward from there, as I mentioned, I met this poet who was also an activist. He was a head coach of a CrossFit academy, like a mixed martial arts CrossFit academy. And through working with him, it was, yeah, as I mentioned, like a launch pad for me to really develop and hone in on my skills. Graphic design wasn't my initial passion. It actually, how it all kind of stemmed for me was that I was fortunate that I was given a screen printing machine when I was really young. Was like around my teen years, and I started diving into you know, t-shirt designs, and like figuring out ways I could apply like my creativity with poetry. And it kind of grew from there. Like I started teaching myself what I could, trying to develop a certain level of mastery when it came to graphic design. And I started to kind of find a bit of a pattern in the work that I was doing within that CrossFit academy. I always had an interest in personal development, in health and fitness. And from there, I mean, like, been so fortunate that the positions that I kept finding myself in allowed me to keep moving forward within that industry. So from that CrossFit academy, I was able to get my foot in the door working for a clothing label, Lonsdale London. And from there, I was able to learn the ropes. I started to dive into other areas, into marketing, into photography, and once again, applying that same mindset of being self-taught and teaching myself what I could about all these different areas. And then fortunately, I guess the passion of personal development and developing those skills in different areas, it kind of led me on to like different places and plenty of new opportunities. I went from there, from Lonsdale, London, working for a supplement company, EHP Labs. And from there, I kind of skyrocketed my growth, and I was able to learn so much about the industry, about marketing as a whole, like how to, I guess, really expand on my gifts throughout that. But as that journey progressed, actually, like I started to get into collaborations with people, and I opened up a studio Blueprint, which is, I think, how we initially met. So I ran a venue / co-work space photography studio in Surrey Hills, closed down because of COVID earlier this year. But that in a way became, once again, a way for me to give back to community. It was a way for me to have a platform for others to do their thing and to share their passion and share their blueprint with other people. Fortunately, once again, like, I got to progress even further in my career. Now I'm working for Fitness First, and I'm loving it. Still get to, you know, merge my gifts with my passions, and yeah, it's just been a steady momentum.
And yes, like, I mean, drawing back to Studio Blueprint, man, I mean, like you said, that's where you and I met for the first time, probably less than 12 months ago. And I guess I personally have experienced the vibe and the type of people that come through that the doors of that studio, and like, you know, what types of events and what types of I guess change makers you were collaborating with. So I'd love for you to talk a bit more about that, and like, I guess how that that's almost like I guess a secondary expressive piece for you outside of your day to day, like how that became to be, and like what was it about creating a platform for these types of specific people that, you know, appealed to you?
Yeah, it's so interesting because the way I used to always put it was that I felt like I was living in two different worlds. Like I had this full-time job. It was in the fitness industry. It was very like you get the vibe of what you get in the fitness industry. Whereas Studio Blueprint, I think it had a bit more of a holistic nature to it. And there were a lot of, I guess they go by the term conscious entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs who like merge spirituality and wellness in their work, in their entrepreneurship. And it naturally, it kind of just became the space for people like that to host their workshops and facilitate their classes. And it was something that I took great passion in nurturing. And I think it's because it was an aspect of my personality as well. Like I've also not only just been into personal development, but my own spiritual development as well. And it just sort of, it became like, I guess, an outward expression of that. We had hosted masterminds at the studio, collaborating with some of like Sydney's conscious entrepreneurs, which has always been a really great opportunity, learning from other people. I'm a big advocate of the learning by osmosis, learning from other people and getting around other people who have the knowledge that you wish to acquire. Yeah, I mean, that was a really incredible journey, and it's definitely not the end of that journey. I'd say it's just more of a transition at the moment. Hence why I started the podcast. The podcast was something that I really wanted to start while I had the studio still, because it was once again another platform for those people to express themselves. Yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah, man, for sure. And like, you know, absolutely, it's like it is a transition for sure. Like, you know, I remember, you know, checking in with you early in the year, just when COVID hit, and, you know, things weren't looking so great, but like now, you know, everything is like sort of come back out. Like you sort of rode that wave, that tumultuous time of like unknown, closing down that studio that you worked so hard to sort of keep afloat. And, you know, it was going really well at that time as well. But yeah, like, you know, whatever I guess the landscape has demanded of you, like has birthed this this upcoming podcast, which, you know, I'm really excited to see come out. And like, you know, I'd love for you to share a little bit more about, you know, what the philosophy behind the Blueprint podcast is all about.
Yeah, thank you, man. No, I appreciate that, and I appreciate coming on as a guest. And I'd love to have you on as well, Shaun. It'd be awesome to pick your brain as well.
Yeah, I'd love to.
So I guess like circling back a little bit, one of the communities that we hosted at Studio Blueprint, a good friend of mine, Amira, her and I, we worked on this project called Taboo Talk. I'm just going to give a little bit of context for where the philosophy came from. So we worked on this project, we went to Bali, and I was obsessed with this book I was reading at the time, The Art of Communication by Thich Nhat Hanh. And there was this one line that really stood out to me. It was talking about the origins of the word community. And what they said in the book was that it stems from this Latin term, communicare, which means to impart, share, or make common. That's the origins of the word community. And like that started to like really influence how I viewed the studio as well. I wanted it to be a space for people to really share their gifts with others, to share their knowledge and their wisdom with people. And once again, I think that's also bled into the podcast as well. The whole intention of that is to really dig deep into people's journeys, similar to this podcast as well. Like the kind of questions that you guys ask, I want to get into the motivations and the whys of the really amazing people I've been blessed to meet, and share that insight, because I believe that throughout my life too, I've also been influenced by podcasts, by mentors, by people who shared their insights, their passions, their wisdom. And that's really been beneficial to me. So once again, I guess it circles back to having that platform and sharing that platform with others in the hopes that it influences people in a positive way.
That's awesome, man. And I have no doubt that you will. I think podcast is a really interesting medium to learn by osmosis, and you mentioned that that's one of the ways that you learn. And, there's nothing like just hearing conversation.
Yeah.
I think that's one really cool thing that the world of podcasts opens up for people, is just to, kind of be a fly on the wall, these conversations that generally we wouldn't really be privy to. Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting. Yeah. And one of the things I wanted to come back to, man, is you mentioned you felt like you were living in two worlds. And you were, doing your job and then running Studio Blueprint. And I'm interested to know what that felt like for you, because I've had a similar experience myself. And yeah, man, I'm just interested to hear your take on that.
Yeah, it's interesting because to expand on that, while I loved my job, in some ways it wasn't completely fulfilling for me. Like I did have these other interests that job wasn't like, it wasn't ticking those boxes for me. At the same time too, there were some, I guess, rules within my contract of what I was and wasn't allowed to do outside of work. So it felt like I was in a kind of like a double life experience, where at work I had to be a certain way, and then at the studio I got to really be who I was, like a fully integrated version of myself. And so it was always kind of felt like I was treading this line of like, my 9 to 5, I have to fit into that box. And then outside of work, I get to be whole. So that was kind of the experience for me. Nowadays, I don't really feel so much that way. Like I also have come to believe that those are kind of self-imposed beliefs we put on ourselves as well. It's tricky because of this, within a contract, it states how you have to operate within that business. But that's not the kind of thing I have to deal with so much anymore.
Yeah, cool. No, man. And I think it's interesting for people to hear, because people are in situations, where they feel like they want to either be someone that they can't outwardly feel they can't outwardly express, or, they're working in a job and they want an outlet, but there's reasons that hold them back. And I just want to highlight for people that you can do it. You're an example of that. And it sounds like, by actually pursuing who you wanted to be outside of just what was your quote unquote job, right? Because I also don't want to downplay the importance of people's work and their employment, right? Like, I'm sure there was a lot of things that you enjoyed about your job and things that it helped you to do. You know what I mean? But there's this thing that I've been thinking about lately, a lot of the time now we're hearing people just saying like, just go all in on your passions, just do that thing. And it's kind of like, whatever happened to doing two things at once? Like, we can explore other areas of our life. And I think, there's times in your life where that's appropriate. And it sounds like for you it was very appropriate, right? And it's led you on to these progressions of different areas of your life, from the Studio Blueprint now to the podcast, and who knows what that will evolve into. And I just bring that up because, I feel people should, listen to that yearning, that little inkling. Like, if you're not fully satisfied where you are, look, you can do other things, you can try things out, and they don't have to be so definitive. Like, you don't have to leave your job to do something. You can do two things at once. You can try both and then see where that leads you, and then just keep assessing.
And I think, look, there's...
Yeah, absolutely,
to me,
man. The phrase came up for me that, you don't quit your day job. Like, you can still have your feet in both worlds. You can still go off and experiment and explore what you're passionate about. But in a way, the way I like to view it is that we have like an internal tuning fork, and you know when you're in alignment, you know when you're in resonance with like who you really could be. Because when you find that you're not, you kind of feel as if you're, at least for me, like pushing up against a wall inside of yourself. There's a different energy to it. There's a different vibe.
Yeah. And,
Totally.
sorry, Les. Just one more thing on that is, as well, there does come a time, a lot of times though, where you just got to burn your boats, like you try something out, you see how it's made you feel, what it's yielding for you. And then you might, by trying the other thing, realize that is really what you want to do. That's something that you want to delve further down the path of. And that's when you can make the jump. And I think, I just want to put that out there for people. And, going on from what you say, is like, you can have your feet in both worlds. Many times there might come a time where you got to choose which side, you step onto. And that's when that's the time to let go of the old and move on to the new. But it's always good to try, man. And I'm just weary these days, especially, man, with all the thing, like all the shit that's being spit at us on social media and stuff. It's really easy to have these throwaway lines of like, find something you love and you never work another day in your life. But when you've got responsibilities, you've got like kids, or you're married, or you've got these financial responsibilities, the range of what they could be, it might not be so responsible for you, man, to just, jump and just quit your job and do something that might not pay you at all, or, but you can try those things out. And then, if that's something that you really enjoyed, it's starting to come good for you, then you can decide to plant your flag on the other side and you can burn those boats back, so you're not tempted to go back, but there's a time and a place for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I actually only learned that phrase, burn your boats, like a couple months ago, but it really resonated with me. Like there is a point, or at least I have found for myself, that you have to let go and just go into the unknown. You're never going to be fully ready. You just have to sometimes take that leap of faith, and that moment will show up. Like it's sort of, it feels like the whole Joseph Campbell hero's journey. Like you'll know when that moment arises, that call to adventure pops up.
Yeah.
I say, like, my advice is take that leap of faith.
And for me, like, it's such an important like discussion to have, because like Shaun has said, there is so much conflicting information out there, and like, it is so easy to have a voice today in the world. All you have to do is have a smartphone and an internet connection, and really you could say whatever the hell you want, and if enough people listen, then you could have some sort of buy-in to whatever you're speaking of. But I think at the end of the day, like we've had like touches of this come up in the conversation today. Just today is just that it's about a level of clarity and a certainty towards what you feel is like a gravitational calling for yourself, right? And it's like, it's not so much like an intellectual thing, there's intellect involved in it, right? There's thinking and there's pragmatism involved in the decisions that you make. Like Shaun said, if you've got responsibilities, then you're going to have to weigh up your options, or your level of I guess options that are available to you might be a bit smaller. But at the same vein, like, there comes a point when you intuitively know that it's time to go. It is time to go all in. Like, you tick off the things that you feel like, yes, I've tried it and it's not for me. Like Shaun's done it before. He started Subito in his garage, as a side hustle, whilst he was working corporate. I started blogging and writing and expressing myself on a public forum and public stage many years before I stopped working in the corporate space. But those are the things that led me and led Shaun to coming to the places where we are now. But like, it takes time. It's not, you have to be very like pragmatic and prudent about what you're doing, because like, again, the trouble is, like, there's this I guess one size fits all mentality, and it's just not the case. It just isn't. And Yeah, I just guess people have to make the decisions for themselves, and you know, d- don't leave it all to whatever you think is the right idea. You have to balance that with a level of intuitive guidance as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There has to be an application of practicality, but also that like that somatic experience that you feel when you know something's right, like you're in attunement. Like you've got to trust it. That's it. Intuition speaks, but it whispers.
Totally. And those are the types of things like, Sean and I have, it's funny, like we've been talking about this lately quite a lot, I guess, and it's been coming up for some of our guests in terms of talking more about this, this sense of listening, and not necessarily listening with your ears, but a deeper sense of listening and what that means for you. And like, I guess it's like it's a bit difficult to talk about in the sense that we're not taught in the collective sense how to notice and hear what the gut feeling means and how to interpret those sorts of things. But this is the value of experience, coming back to trying and figuring things out for yourself and not being afraid to dip your toes in. And if it doesn't feel right, then let's go on to the next thing, but it's like that is how you hone anything in life. You think about any experience where you're trying to improve in life, it's not really through just the simple application of consuming a text. You have to try it out in person yourself, and feel those feelings, feel that that visceral sensation as it runs through your body, and whether it aligns with you, like you were saying, mate.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I totally believe in that. Following your internal compass, uh, listening to your internal truth. Like I think you only ever really yourself in those positions if you feel the experiences, the experience as it is.
Sure. And you said something really interesting, man, as well, which was, intuition speaks to us, but it whispers. And that's been my experience as well, right? It's like, it's never slapping you in the face. It's this little whisper. And, we had a guest on a few weeks ago. Her name's Soichi, really interesting person, interesting story as well. And, she mentioned something which was, whenever she didn't listen to her intuition, she paid a price for it. Right. And it made me think about my own experience. And I was like, shit, man, isn't that just the truth? Like, I've had these little inklings, these little whispers, and you're just like, you choose not to listen. Like, you're choosing not to listen because they come up, man. And it's like when someone says something to you, you're like, nah, don't worry about it, man. Like, I got this. Or you've heard something else and you think that might be the way, but it's different, man. Intuition's like this feeling, right? And it is a whisper. And I just want to highlight that for people, that it's not just going to slap you in the face. There's not just going to be the heavens parting and light shining down on you, choosing A from B. It's like this little whisper, man. You really got to listen. And what Soichi said has been the same for me, man. Like, whenever, intuition's whispered to me a little bit and I haven't listened, I've paid the price. And has that been your experience?
Yeah, it's been my experience for sure. Yeah, I've gone down paths that I shouldn't have, or I kind of just stretched my limitations on things and ignored that that quiet whisper that I mentioned, like saying this isn't right for me, but just ego saying no, I'll push through it. Like I'll make it work. I've had plenty of those experiences where you just like you don't know when to let go, or you don't know, like, yeah, I guess it does. It like you said, like it kind of slaps you in the face if you take a wrong turn. But yeah, I think as I've gotten older, I've started to pay more attention to it, and I'm more aware of what I believe is the right direction for me to head. And a lot of it for me is kind of like looking in the rear view, looking at past experiences that have shaped me and formed where I'm at in my life to today.
And I think it's also important to sort of point out this, like, that there shouldn't be too much of a sense of, I guess, dread when you're, you know, making or faced with these choice points or these crossroads, right? Like like I said before, it's really like a learning experience either way. It's right or it's wrong for you, right? It's not an objective thing, it's very subjective. But in either case, whether we continue walking or we stumble, the most important thing is our awareness towards that. You know, if we stumble, then we say, hey, am I aware to the lesson? You know, I took a wrong turn based on something that I felt was right. What should have been the right way for me? And if you do continue walking down the path and it feels right, then again, are you aware to the fact that these are the, I guess, common threads in your, you know, central experience that are leading you down this path that you feel so aligned to, you know? And like, I want to ask you, man, like, what are the things or experiences or, I guess, practices that might have helped you with honing your ability to sort of be more in tune or aware to these sorts of, you know, inner guidance mechanisms?
Good question. I asked a guest that I had on my podcast today about his daily rituals, and I believe for me, that's really helped me to get more in tune with myself. I have, you know, a regular morning practice that includes breath work and exercise, and having that time to fill up my cup before I can serve my family and my community and the world around me. I really do feel like self-reflection is really important to be able to tap into that, and spending that time going inwards, focusing in on, you know, what's the next step that you could take. What next inspired action can you take to move towards your goals and your visions. And on terms of that as well, I'm a big like advocate for vision boards as well. I have a mentor who runs these workshops, and been involved in a few of them. And I think getting clear on what you want to achieve is really important. I'm a very visual thinker. Graphic design sort of has become a thing for me. But you know, having a visual kind of cue or a reminder of what you want your future self to look like, so that you sort of have a bit of a roadmap to how you're going to get there, for me personally has been really beneficial.
It's cool. I mean, it's good to highlight, and we love asking people, I guess, what works for them, because a lot of the time, we get guests on who have interesting stories to tell, and they all have different approaches to how they, I guess, manage the complexities of traversing, you know, what we call life. And it's good to highlight again that it seems that visual aids are very supportive for you and your journey and your path. But it's also, again, about knowing and understanding for yourself, like, what works well for you. Like, it may not work well for everyone. You know, my thing's meditation. I am a great advocate for the practice of this art. But I know that a lot of people are averse to it. You know, they don't like it because I don't know, it's difficult. It's difficult. And there's some, I guess, misconceptions surrounding what it truly is and what it does for you, you know. So again, it comes back down to this notion of trying. Like, you know, there are so many, you know, people out there who we aspire and look up to in this similar circle, similar space, who share their experiences, you know. And it's all up to us to simply try it and see whether it works for us. And if it does work for us, then perhaps it is about, you know, introducing it into our daily practice to continue to nurture ourselves, to be better, of better service to the people around us in the world. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't know if I was going to touch on this, but experiences with psychedelics as well has been really helpful. Those visionary states that you go in, some of the visions that I've had in ayahuasca really helped shape my perspective as well and help me understand my place in the universe. And like, once again, that's not like I'm not prescribing that to anybody. Like, disclaimer, it's not a one size fits all thing. Somebody might have a completely different experience. I'm sure they would, but for me, that's something that's helped me.
Totally.
And I think, once again, it's kind of like looking at the different tools in the toolbox, experiencing things. You won't know until you've done it firsthand whether or not that's something that works for you. And if it does, add it to the toolbox. That's kind of my methodology towards it.
Yeah. And it's, so important to point out to people, the topic of psychedelics has been coming up quite a lot, I guess, not only in the discussions within this podcast, but, just globally, because a lot of people with a lot of reach and a large platform are beginning to advocate for it a lot more. Prominent people like Tim Ferriss and Aubrey Marcus and things like this, they're very strong voices in the, I guess, more mainstream community about the positive effects of psychedelics. And you and I, Chris, we've talked about this on a personal level, that it has helped us both immensely. But at the same time, I always have to, I guess, preface the conversation with the fact that there must be, again, comes back to this intuitive knowing, this feeling like, and take this how you will, but the medicine calls you. You must be called by the medicine in order to take it. And like, you will know when you feel that, it'll come into your field of consciousness and you're just thinking about it, and you will be able to discern between whether you want to just take it to enable you to make better decisions in your job in corporate, right? Versus a real existential questioning of what it is that your life is about, and that'll draw you in. And like you said, it's not for everyone. Everyone is going to have a different experience. Everyone does, because that's what it reveals to you, the truth. It unmasks this uniform that we all wear. But again, it is a transformative experience only when, I guess, you are completely ready to experience it. Yeah, that's my sort of disclaimer on that. Whenever I guess talk to people about the psychedelics.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. As I said before, it's not a one size fits all. It does get into the deep subconscious mind, and it can bring up some deep stuff about yourself and about the nature of reality, and like I said, like where you find yourself in this world and in this universe. While we're on the topic, I'd love to share a poem or a snippet of a poem that was inspired from an ayahuasca experience. Is that cool?
For sure, man. For sure. Go for it.
Okay. Lay it all down, your ego and your shield. Let the cracks open up, pierce the heart. Let the light shine through, because there's beauty in the brokenness, art in the pain. In every tribulation, there is wisdom to be gained. There are realizations in hindsight, errors in your ways that can be corrected if you integrate the changes that your heart wants to make. Break the chains of the shackle of an old self who no longer serves who you are today. Like a snake shedding skin, layer by layer reborn from within, like a phoenix rising from the ashes into a new beginning. Looking inwards, you seek and find that the perception of self you had was blindsided. What you thought you had healed was hidden. Mask the pain away with triumph and defiance, blocking the messages that the guilt and shame needed reverence to be put to trial, purged and released by the divine, because the past is a place of reference, not a place to reside. Experience isn't what happens to you. It's what you do with what happens to you that ultimately defines who you mold and shape yourself into once you've walked through the fire. So that was just a snippet of that poem. But it was a very profound experience, and I had this message because once again, like sometimes I ignore the intuition, and sometimes I don't fully tap into aspects of myself that I could. But the message I got from ayahuasca was very, very clear. It was saying for me is a way for me to connect with a divine message, to be used as a vessel to channel a higher message. So that's kind of just to give a bit of context of where that poem kind of stems from.
Yeah, beautiful, man. I mean, vibe with that for sure. Like, I've written many poems also that along the same lines, of this notion of rebirth and, just coming to a level of clarity. And like you said, everyone sort of comes to a different experience when going through that sort of medicine, using that sort of medicine. Like I've seen people who have been resistant, to seeing or being shown the truth of what reality is, and it becomes quite a traumatic experience for people. It can become quite a traumatic experience. So it's not one of those things you can ever take lightly. But like, I think a testament to that beautiful poetry, man, like some beauty can come out of it as well. Like, this is the work, right? This is the depth of what it is to be, in true existence as a human, to not only ride those highs, but, go through those lows and bring back out and come back even taller and stronger and more powerful than we ever were. So thanks for sharing that, man.
Man, thank you.
Yeah, brother. I think that might be a nice place for us to leave it today. And you said that was a snippet from the poem. Perhaps we can put a link up to the poem itself so people can go back and have a read for themselves, internalize it. I'm going to be listening back to that poem again for sure, man. You said some things that really hit for me, and I think it's beautiful that you've created a platform for yourself to be able to share the things that you've learned, and that you're holding that space for other people. I think it's a really, really beautiful thing, man. I want to commend you on that.
Thank you, and I really appreciate you guys having me on and giving me the opportunity to express as well. I'm sure you guys know as hosts, I think you spend more time asking the questions than really getting to like self-reflect and express. So thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Pleasure was ours, bro. Pleasure was ours. And yeah, would love for you to, share a little bit about where people can find you, man. Wherever you want, whatever you're working on, maybe it's a podcast, wherever else. Floor is yours, bro.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. So you can find me at Sulfa, SULFA. And the Blueprint podcast is @blueprint_podcast. Still in the works, still recording. It's sort of creating a backlog at the moment. But I'm intending to launch that probably in the new year.
Awesome, man. We'll put all that into the show notes for everyone to find. And yeah, can't wait to start listening to the podcast once it launches, bro.
Awesome. And I can't wait to have you guys both on and we'll have another jam.
For sure, man. 100%. Shaun, where can people find you, man?
Yeah, easiest place to find me is just on Instagram, guys. So it's Shaun_Coop, SHAUN_COOP. Just send me a message. We can chat there. How about you, Les?
Yeah, just find me on my website, findingspace.co. You can send me a note there. And, if you want, you can jump onto my newsletter and keep abreast of any updates. My meditation program is coming out soon, real soon. So, keep up to date and keep your ears on the ground. And yeah, that's some really powerful work that I'm putting together. Otherwise, on my socials, at findingspace.co on Facebook and Instagram as well. If you want to send Shaun and I an email, it's the hustle and flow podcast @gmail.com. I guess if you want to ask any questions about this particular episode, get in touch with Chris, or even come on as a guest, anything at all, just send us an email there and say good day.
And yeah, just want to commend you again, Chris. Thanks for, doing what you do, opening people's minds up to new perspectives and holding that space for people, man. I think it's a really powerful thing, and something not to be taken lightly by people. I think, being able to actually express yourself is something that a lot of people have a hard time doing because they just don't know where to do it. So by holding that space for people, man, you're giving them that opportunity, and it's really cool.
Thank you. And likewise, I resonate with what you guys are putting out there and really appreciate the work that you guys are doing. I think the world needs more of it.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that too very much. And if you're listening today and you took something from our conversation, a little nugget, something that, helps you or you think might help someone else, just share it with one other person. That's how we grow the podcast. So if you could do us that solid, we really appreciate it. Until next time, guys.
See you later, guys.